Good morning, I'm Rowena Crosby.
And I'm Deborah Renner, and we're your co-hosts for this show. Thank you for joining us for the next 17 minutes for your IT show. This is the show based on the book, Your Invisible Toolbox. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And it's the show where every week we look at a tool that's essential for working effectively with others.
And today we're broadcasting live from the Tero International Studio, and we get to investigate a tool that's a real differentiator for people. You've probably heard or said the phrase, don't be a stranger. And the reason we say that is because we want to invite people to stay in touch with us. Yes. The invisible tool we're going to look at today allows us to become the kind of person people want to stay in touch with.
Absolutely, and it's a tool we can all use. Our development challenge is going to talk about some strategies that we can use to help remember people's names. That helps in connection. Our social media posts are going to highlight a couple articles that have some great tips on how to build better business relationships, and we're so excited for our interview. We're going to be interviewing a businessman whose business revolves around helping people connect and also helping people market their business to diverse audiences.
So we're going to be joined later in the show by Michael Libby, who has the radio program called Insight on Business, the Business News Hour. He also owns an ad company. And then we've got a special surprise, I think, at the end of the show. This will be interesting. We've got a dozen eggs here on the table, and I've been challenged to do the Crack an Egg for Hunger challenge. So we're going to see if I end up with a hard-boiled or a raw egg all over me in a little bit later in the program, so stay tuned for that.
So this is going to be an egg-exceptional episode, so let's get started.
So in the book, Your Invisible Toolbox, Chapter 9 asks you to think about what is your edge.
That sounds really confusing.
It does, until you actually hear the explanation and the background on it. Successful individuals are often people we talk about having an edge, and in the book we talk about a connection to nature. So a book called Edge Strategy, A New Mindset for Profitable Growth was written by a couple of authors, Lewis and McCone, and in there they talk about what happens in nature between two different landscapes, and that space between the landscapes that really creates an environment that allows for greater survival and for greater diversity because they get the combination of both of the landscapes together. And in that space in nature, we find a lot more game birds, we find more quail, we find more of the grouse and the pheasants and all of that, because that space really lends itself to more survival. We can really do that in our own personal lives by creating that edge space with other people in our lives.
Oh, we can. In the book we use that edge effect to talk about how important it is when people are trying to solve a problem with someone else to be able to come to that common ground, to find the things they share between them. And we can take that same cue from science and find the sweet spot in our interpersonal connections where we engage in someone to find out what is our common ground.
And it really is a mindset, and it's a choice. So we can develop an edge mindset by recognizing where the edge is in those relationships and really maximizing that, especially with people who are different from us.
And thinking of our connections with people as opportunities to really combine two worlds, two views, it makes connecting a lot more interesting and a lot more valuable. So let's take a look at our invisible tool of the week. Our invisible tool of the week comes from Chapter 9, and it is simply to just find common ground.
And we talk about that a lot in Tero workshops in our influence, negotiations, selling skills, and leadership curriculum. We talk about the importance of acknowledging common ground as a critical tool to creating collaboration.
And we have a quote in Chapter 9 that was from Michael Urie about collaboration. And he says, collaboration is when magic is made with more than one person. It's when more than one person finds common ground on the same page. And you know, collaborative relationships are magical. When someone takes the time to get to know us, they really get us, be it an acquaintance, a colleague, it could be a family member. Those relationships turn into more like lifelong partnerships.
They do, and collaborative relationships really turn into trusting relationships. And when someone has your back and you have theirs, you have that type of collaborative common ground relationship that can get through a lot of difficulties.
But how do we take our people connections and elevate them or graduate them to be actually long-lasting business or personal relationships.
One of the things we often talk about at Tero is the need to, instead of trying to be interesting to others, is to make yourself interested in others.
And it can be as simple as remembering someone's name, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. It can be following up with people that we meet. It can be exploring what it is that matters to them. Or it could even be just finding some time offline to spend with someone that you know may be in business and just get to know them as a person. Those are all ways to use our invisible tool of the week.
And our development challenge is really about one of the simplest ways to show this caring, although it is not easy.
No, it isn't. It's time for our development challenge of the week, and this is where we challenge ourselves to change and try something new.
Doesn't it make you feel special when someone remembers your name, particularly if it's been after just a really brief meeting? It really helps us make those connections.
Yes, but most of us are good at saying, I can't remember names, and we tell ourselves that we can, and so we don't really hold ourselves accountable. So our development challenge is to try to remember the names that you encounter this week, and we're going to give you some tips. And the first tip is just simply be there when you're getting the name. Be present, receive it, listen.
Listen, so often we don't remember it because it never got in. It's not that our memories are flawed. We didn't even listen to the name in the first place.
Connect the name to something personal to you. That'll help you remember it. Ask the person the origin of their name. That's really quite fascinating because you find out why their parents named them what they did. Repeat the person's name, or associate the name with something that either rhymes with it or a visual that you think of when you hear it. Those are all ways that you can help hold on to those names that you receive.
So your development challenge this week, the next time you're at a cocktail party and you're a little bit bored, take some of these tips and challenge yourself to make remembering names part of your agenda.
And we can hardly make lasting connections with the people that we connect with and meet unless we can start with the simple point of just remembering who they are.
Absolutely. Well, it's time to take a look at our social media posts of the week, and those of you that follow Tero on social media already know we post useful articles and links several times every day on interpersonal skills topics. We're going to feature two of them right now. Our first featured post is to an Inc. article, and it's titled The 9 Habits of People Who Build Extraordinary Relationships, and you will find that is a great read, and it'll be on all our platforms today.
It's really interesting. It's a different take. It'll be a fun one to check
Yes.
out. Our second post is a Forbes article, and this is on 4 unusual tips to consider when building great business relationships, and a couple of these are things that you shouldn't do with regards to your social media accounts. So check this one out. It'll be on all Tero social media platforms on Thursday.
Well, we're excited that we're moving into the segment of the program we call This Week's Interview, and we are going to welcome Michael Libby to our table. And Michael is the host of the Business News Hour, the only one-hour radio program that focuses on business news. It's called Insight on Business. He also runs a marketing and ad agency, and he's running for elected office. So, and it's election voting day tomorrow.
Tomorrow's election.
Tomorrow. So those of you in Windsor Heights that are joining us, you're going to get an up-close look at your candidate today.
Thanks, Rowena. Good
Thanks
to see
for
you,
being
Deborah.
here.
Great to see you. Thanks for being here. Before we get started
Sure.
asking you some questions, would you tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself?
Well, certainly, and thanks for how much time do we have? I'm an old guy, so
we got about 7 minutes, but we've got 7 questions for you.
All right. The crux of the issue is this. I'm a small business person. I've been had my own advertising and marketing agency for a number of years. And 5 years ago, because no one else in the Midwest was doing it, we decided to go ahead and attempt a business news broadcast. And Tero International is one of our longtime sponsors. And so what we do is we talk about the business news of the nation, the region, and long-form business interviews. And of course, those are all posted. You can find out everything about Insight on Business, the News Hour. Just Google that, or my name, Michael Libby, Libbie. You'll find it all.
And you'll also find it's an award-winning show.
Yes.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. Thank you, Rowena. We were very fortunate. We've been honored 2 years in a row by the Iowa Broadcast News Association, and so we're very, very pleased. You know, that's yeah.
We're so honored to have you here
Thank you.
today.
I appreciate it.
You work with a variety of individuals, helping them inform others about their business, the interviews that you do on Insight on Business.
Right.
What common thread have you found with people in general? Is there one thing you found that's common even to diverse individuals or businesses?
Yeah, thank you for the question. There are some really interesting common issues that people face. I'll give you a couple of them, if I might. One is finding qualified talent to work in their businesses. I hear this all of the time. And the other thing I find is that people don't know what they don't know.
That sounds like a page out of our playbook.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm writing a book about that. I think, and I took I read your book every week, and I only read one chapter a week, and it got to thinking about this. So many people know their business, but do they really know the business that other people know? For example, you folks train people in leadership, executive coaching, speaking. Some people don't know how to do that. So you don't know sometimes what you don't know.
Yes.
So we'll see. Maybe 100 chapters, 100 things people don't know.
We'll be with you for 2 years if you're doing one a week.
Well, what's your secret? You relate so well to so many different people, and on your show you're so open and interested in everyone. How do you develop that rapport that we hear when we listen to your show?
It isn't by accident. It's by training, actually. I'm a trained communicator. That's what my job has been for years. Even in an advertising and marketing agency, you need to be able to relate to people. And I was really caught by one of the things that you said while I was waiting to come on, and that's remembering people's names. Over the course of the past 5 weeks, I've knocked on 1,100 doors.
Wow.
And met hundreds of people. And yesterday we were out leafleting in Windsor Heights and just dropping literature. And I was calling people's names on each street as we passed by their homes. And I think if you make it if you make it central to what it is, and if you can relate to people and really start to understand where they're coming from, and then remember that name and call them by it, I think it's a lot of fun. And I've been in the company of many, many national leaders who have mastered that opportunity. So I think that's important.
Let's visit that election tomorrow for a minute. If you're knocking on that many doors, you're meeting a lot of people
Lots
with
of folks.
Diverse ideas, and how do you handle that and still have that rapport?
One of my very best friends is Desmond Adams, and Desmond is a wonderful guy who has this very common saying, and he says, the flattest pancake has two sides. And what that means is that everybody has an opinion, and that opinion may be vastly divergent, but again, finding common ground is the issue. When people say, we don't want sidewalks in Windsor Heights, the next question is, well, how do you feel about being the second highest property tax community in the metro? Would you like to assuage the pain of your property taxes? Well, yeah. And all of a sudden, we've got some common ground that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. What tip do you have for people? You help a lot of people market their businesses. What tip do you have, one tip, how they can market what they do most effectively?
Seek professional help.
It's always the best tip.
I mean, I wouldn't go to a dentist to have my appendix taken out, nor would I go to a lawyer for brain surgery. I think sometimes business people, again, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
They focus on whatever their business or their product or service is, and they know what that is. However, being able to take that to market and convince consumers that they should need or want whatever it is that they're selling requires some talent and understanding.
Thank you for that. Now, is there one interview, one person, I know there's been so many, but is there one that stands out in your mind that you could share with our viewers?
Oh boy, there are a couple. One, just 2 weeks ago, we had Suki Radia from Bankers Trust. And Suki is retiring at the end of this year as president of Bankers Trust. And we really didn't talk so much about business as we talked about his personal life and where he came from and why he is so convinced that diversity in our workplace and in our business and in our interpersonal relationships is so important. You touched on that in your opening segment about the more we know about diverse people, the more that broadens our life.
Yes.
And then another interview that was a couple of years ago that we won an award for, by the way, was the tragedy of how many puppy mills that we have here in Iowa, and the reluctance of people to act on that.
Wow.
That's fascinating. Tell our viewers how they can listen to your radio program.
Sure.
Date, time.
Yeah. We're on Monday through Friday between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. You can find us here in the Des Moines Metro and in about 17 counties on AM 940. And but if you Google Insight on Business, the News Hour, all of our long-form business interviews are on podcast form, iTunes, Stitcher, and the list goes on and on.
We absolutely love listening to them.
Love the
thank you for being
interviews.
here
Very well,
with us
thank you.
today. So
Great opportunity.
We'll keep you here. We have another job for you as we transition to our close. We promised to explain the eggs on the table. So on World Egg Day, which was in October, the Iowa Egg Council introduced a social media campaign called the Crack an Egg for Hunger Challenge. And when anybody is willing to do that, crack an egg on their head, they would donate to the Iowa food banks.
And that's reminiscent of what we did the Ice Bucket Challenge a few years ago, and that just supported ALS. And for everyone that posts the video on social media, the Iowa Egg Council will donate a dozen eggs to the Iowa Food Bank.
So we're happy to be part of that. Jeff Russell, the CEO of Delta Dental of Iowa, challenged me to take the challenge. So we're going to do that here on live YouTube. We've got a dozen eggs. We've got a guest who I have asked if he will select one. Some are hard-boiled, some are raw. We're going to select one of these, and then I am going to crack it on my head, and we'll see how messy my business suit gets.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about the health and what eggs are going to contribute. Can we do a little bit of learning
Of course,
around
Deb.
it?
We should definitely share some learning here before we mess up my hair.
This is interesting. Egg yolks are among the most concentrated sources of choline, and research found that higher choline leads to better memory and retention, which is really important. And women who are pregnant, it'll actually transfer to the baby. So a lot of great nutrition in eggs.
Well, and memory benefits, that actually ties to our theme today of trying to remember people's names. The other thing that we know about choline is that it breaks down into a chemical that apparently has a hormone that leads to happiness. So these things might make you happier too.
Ah.
But you have to eat them, not break them
Not bust them on your
And
head.
that's the whole point of this, is that so many eggs are going to be donated to the Iowa Food Bank, which is really cool. So here we go.
You know, one of the other nice things about eggs is I understand it really has beneficial qualities for hair.
Oh, well, that's good to
Well,
know.
then I am
Well,
going to
let's
get
not
that
use that one.
benefit.
Let's use this one over here.
Oh, okay, thank you.
we
Oh
go.
my goodness. I was thinking about doing a dry run on the weekend and I didn't. So let's see what happens.
Hard-boiled
here.
or raw?
Hard-boiled or raw? It's raw.
It certainly is.
Yikes. Okay. Do I look awesome, Rachel? Well, the other thing you're supposed to do as part of this challenge is to challenge someone else. So I have two challenges. One is to our guest here, Michael Libby.
I knew that
I'm
was
going to
coming.
encourage you to do this on your radio show. Except for have Tyler run a camera so you can post
Got
it
it.
live and get it donated. I'm also going to challenge the members of my EO forum. So consider yourself notified. Tom Ruprecht, Jason Berger, Linda Cook, Tricia McFadden, John Klein, and KV, welcome back to the forum.
Time is up. Yeah.
So thanks to all of you for joining us today. If you missed any portion of the program, or if you'd like to share it with others, you'll find the entire program loaded up onto Tero's YouTube channel. Join us again next Monday morning at 9:03, where we'll be cleaned up and we'll explore another tool in your Invisible Toolbox.
And now it's your turn. We welcome your ideas and suggestions for future shows. You can email your ideas to ideas@yourinvisibletooolbox.com. Find us out there on your favorite social media platform, and we're also out there on Instagram. And if you follow the link below, you'll be subscribed, so you'll know when these shows are going to air. And a great thank you to Kyle Plummer, who is our director, and also our cameraman, and Rachel Trainham, who is also assisting today, and to Michael. Thank you for being
You're
here.
very welcome. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. And that's a wrap.